Welcome to Galactic Grandmother, Heart to Heart. My name is April, and my special guest today is Eric Raines. Eric is really an energy healer extraordinaire, and now he has gotten to the point where he's become a teacher of the human potential of not only our energy bodies, but how the spiritual nature and everything works into the human vehicle. And he comes to us from Puerto Rico today. I'm so excited to finally get you on here. Thank you for being with us, Eric.
It's an honor. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
For those that aren't familiar with you, I've been following you since you lived on the West Coast in the United States, but now you're in Puerto Rico. But would you give us a little background about your personal journey to get to who you are today and where you're living today?
Oh, goodness. I mean, that's a long story. I'll try to
Yeah,
give the cliff
that's
notes of
okay.
it. Long story short, like my genetics are from extreme trauma. I've got just both sides of my family, just awful lives, like all the way back to as far as we can record. I grew up as a child who I didn't have my dad in the house. They got divorced when I was two. He was extremely abusive and, drugs and all that. So I grew up in a single mother household who she did the best that she possibly could for me and my sister. And it definitely could have been a lot worse of an upbringing, but I mean, it definitely wasn't the best. I mean, I got into a lot of trouble, but I had, what I felt were just like raging deficiencies inside of me. I could see all the kids on the playground able to play with each other and have fun with each other and make friends, and it was just always, how do the humans do that? And, I mean, I was always incredibly smart. I was always at the top of my class. I had an eidetic memory, and I could just read something once or twice, and then I could recite it back to you years later. But like on the emotional component, I was like a brick. I was an absolute rock. Like there was just nothing there. Well, I thought there was nothing there.
Mhm.
Turns out I could feel negative emotion just fine. But it was the positive side of everything that I had a complete numbness for it. And I guess you could say as I grew up and I became a young man, I started to really just kind of go down the wrong path. I was really following in my father's footsteps. The funny thing was that I always knew that there was something wrong, like that there's a better way, that this isn't correct. And there was always something inside of me that was like, hey, there's a better way. You can always figure this out. And I just, I ignored it, and I fell into addiction and just a really awful way of living. And it all really kind of culminated December 21st, 2012, actually. That was when, like I didn't really give any credence to the date. Everybody was kind of talking about it, like, oh, the Aztecs, end of the world. And I was like, blah, blah, blah. And I had this little piece of citrine that I found in a parking lot. It was actually like this point that it was right in front of my tire. If I would have drove any further, it would have popped my tire. And I didn't even know it was there until I came back out and I saw it. And I just kind of, oh, cool. And I put it in my pocket and I just carried it around. And I was actually at my job on the 21st, and it was maybe 9:40. It was like 9:46 in the morning. And this little citrine piece I had in my pocket just stopped. And I don't know what to call it other than that. Like it just stopped. And I pulled it out of my pocket, and I'm sitting here like not recognizing that I could actually feel the frequency of this stone until it stopped having frequency. And there was another lady who I was talking to, like some esoteric stuff that we were just kind of dabbling into. And I, gave it to her, and I was like, what does that feel like to you? And she like grabs a hold of it and she goes, what is wrong with this thing? And I was like, I know, right? And I was like, there is something to this date. Like, oh my goodness, it's all ending. And I just kind of like spiraled out, and sorry, my cats are scratching. And I just kind of spiraled out, and I just fell into this incredibly rough place. And I was listening to this guy who channels. His name is Daryl Anka, and I honestly don't recommend following him anymore. But back in the day, he had some very, very poignant information. And one of the things that like really had me spiraling out was the fact that, how do you live your best life? How do you access your potential as a human? Well, follow your passion. What would you do if money didn't exist? And
Mhm.
that question spiraled me out, because it's like, well, obviously I'd take some time off. I'd stop working these dead end jobs. I'd, go travel. I'd have fun. But like 3, 4 years tops, and I'm going to be so bored. What would I even want to wake up and do? Like, what would I, be excited to get up in the morning and get moving towards? And I just had no clue. And it's like, well, what am I even passionate about? I don't know. What do I even like? I don't know. Like, what do I want to make of my life? I don't know. Who am I? I don't know. And I just spiraled. And I remember very distinctively, that was actually the first time I became aware of like parasitic constructs and like negative entities that were, siphoning off the negative emotion, because I could feel it. It was like I was falling into this pit. And
Mhm.
like I was the heavy thing that was literally making the pit. And I could feel it like rising up around me. And then all of a sudden I could feel things up at the top of it, like gleefully, just, they were enjoying what I was doing. And it, whoa, what is that? And that was like the first time I had any type of knowledge of the systems that I help people fix and clear out now.
Mhm.
And that was when like my relationship ended explosively, and I ended up actually having to take my 9 month old daughter, and I was living in Reno at the time, and I ended up moving to California back into my mom's house at 25 years old with my 9 month old daughter, with no money, nothing to my name, and I had to get on food stamps and welfare. And I remember very distinctively, it was really funny because I could see the dichotomy of it, and it's like, most people in this situation would be really upset and, kind of sad that this is all going on. And I was like, look at all this time I have to work on myself. And, so I started like doing Kundalini yoga and like trying to move energy and just like diving deeper into the esoteric side of it and like figuring out things that I became obsessed with. Like I truly became obsessed with them. And it was the first thing that I would think of when I would wake up. And it was the last thing that I would think of before I would go to sleep. And I was just so excited to dive into it and figure it out. And then I started getting into massage school. And in massage school, I met a lady named Victoria, who she did some Reiki work on me. And like, I'll never forget it. It was like I had this big lump in my chest that was keeping me from feeling anything positive on the emotional spectrum. And she popped a hole in it. And I could feel for like the next 3 days, it was like there was something leaking out of the bottom of my heart. And then all of a sudden it stopped leaking and I could feel again. And it was incredible, like absolutely incredible. And so I have to figure out more of this. I have to understand this. And so I started to, she attuned me to the master level in Holy Fire Reiki. And I started learning how to move energy around inside of my body. And that cascaded into all kinds of just incredible experience, incredible experiences. I went through a process that I've never really heard about anybody talk about it before, but it's where you completely and totally eliminate the color of the chakra centers and you become as the sun. And the whole theory behind it is if you break a beam of light with a prism, you'll see the entire spectrum, the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. But if you look at the entire electromagnetic spectrum, if we equivalent that to a stack of papers that are 2,000 feet tall, the visible light spectrum that we see inside of is the width of one of those sheets of paper. And so by having, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet inside of your body, you're now taking that tiny little spectrum and you're breaking it apart into 7 different layers. And by getting rid of all of the color, what you end up doing is you encompass the sun, and then all of a sudden you have access to just way more energy, way more spectrum. And so I went through that. Like it was a whole entire process. Like as soon as I put my kids to bed, I go and I'd start walking laps around the school that was across the street from my house. And I just breathe and connect and meditate and just hit this walking meditation that sometimes like I'd, kind of snap to, and it's 2 in the morning and I'm covered in sweat. And like, I was like, oh, wow, that was crazy. And I started downloading this process. I started understanding how this process worked. And I know now who I was talking to. I actually came into contact with this being. I was about maybe 21, 22. I'll get into that in a second. But the process eventually led me to the point to where I released the chakra caps, the energetic limiters inside of the energy centers of the human body, and
Mhm.
my heart space exploded that night. And it was February 14th, 2017 when it happened. And it was such an explosive activation that I couldn't push my hands into the field of my heart space. And I was trying to, because I was trying to cover my chin because everything was so hot. It was literally starting to burn my chin. Like I had almost like a really bad sunburn on my chin the next day. The only way I know how to describe it is there was an explosion of light inside of me that flooded through my entire body. And it became such a powerful field of cleansing that there was something inside of my temple that clicked and then started to slide back inside of my head. And the further it moved back inside of my head, the more painful it got, until when it was back here, like right at the gallbladder meridian where it connects into the base of the skull, it felt like somebody was driving like a red hot nail into the back of my head. But concurrently, as that was happening, my own internal voice that I used to, what I thought was think my own thoughts inside of my head, as it slid back and got more painful, it got more distorted and crazy until it was like literally a demon screaming in the back of my head. And it only took maybe about 10 seconds for this process to happen. And like as this is going on, I'm feeling all of this explosion from my heart space, and this thing happening inside of my head, and the realization of it, like there's something inside of my head, and that's not me. Like that's not me doing this. It's a completely and totally autonomous consciousness that is outside of my own understanding, my own consciousness. And as soon as I had that thought, I felt it trying to twist veins in the back of my brain right here, and it tried to kill me. And I immediately, like, just with all this light that I had going in my body, I started fighting this thing. And it took me about 3 hours that first night, but I finally got rid of it. And as soon as it was gone, like my head was completely and totally silent. Like I could not have any background chatter inside of my head unless I forced it. I had to make noise happen. And then I recognized there's other spots that felt like that, but they're in my body in other places. And so I went and I cleaned those things out too. And by the time I was done, I felt like I was floating. My auric field was massive. It was a good 50 feet in every direction. And I could feel everything inside of it. I could feel my mom sleeping in the other room. I could feel bugs crawling around in the dirt down below me. And it was a very, very intense, a consciousness expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought I was going crazy. Like I seriously thought I was going crazy. I was like, I just had a demon yelling in my head. I need a padded cell. Like this is nuts. Like I got to go check myself into the loony bin tomorrow. And so, but at the same time, like all of because I had the whole reason I got into massage school was I had like crippling injuries from martial arts when I was like 15, 16 years old. And like they hurt all the time. And I couldn't feel any pain. There was no pain. And I literally felt like I was a balloon, like floating. Like, it was like I was capitulating to gravity, like, because everybody else believes it was real. Okay, I might be crazy, but I feel the best I've ever felt in my life. So I go to bed that night and I wake up the next day and my auric field's not like this big giant bubble anymore. It's still big. It's like a good 15 feet in every direction, but it was nowhere near as intense as the night before. But I still felt amazing. And so I go to school that day, and there was a lady who was going to school with us and I showed up like a half hour early because I'm still just like, oh, like, oh goodness, like I'm crazy. And so I go in and I'm sitting in the break room and I'm just like thinking about this. I'm trying to understand what had happened. And I felt it before she ever even opened the door. It was like there was this pressure, this chaos, this roiling that was coming up towards my field. And I turn around and then she comes walking in through the hallway and I make eye contact with her. And she's a hot mess. And I was like, oh my goodness, are you okay? And she looks at me and she goes, yeah, no. And I was like, do you need a hug? And she's like, no, yeah. And I run up and I just give her a hug. And I felt my heart space just like bubbling out towards her. And it touched something inside of her that all of a sudden I'm seeing her and her boyfriend screaming at each other. And like, I got the whole entire backstory. Like she realized she was pregnant. He wanted an abortion. She wanted to keep it. They got into a huge fight over it. And then they broke up and then she went to school.
Oh, lovely.
And I felt it as I'm like feeling this all happening. It jumped inside of my chest. And all of a sudden, like how good I felt turned off immediately. And like I was hugging her for almost a minute, and at the end of it, she's like, "That was the best hug I've ever had in my life. I feel high right now, Eric. Oh my goodness!" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem," you know. And so I go into the classroom because I mean, like it was an ordeal pulling this thing out of my head. Like I mean, I was literally like the night before, like like physically trying to pull this thing out of my head,
Mhm.
and now I've got something weird inside of my chest, and I don't want to, like be in the middle of the classroom, like trying to rip this invisible thing out of me. So I'm sitting there just breathing into it, trying to light it up. And it kept on like moving around and I couldn't get rid of it. And so I was sitting there in class. I'm not paying attention to anything. I'm literally trying to light this thing up inside of me. And then all of a sudden I hear, "Your turn, Eric." And I was like, "What?" It's like, "Yeah, your turn." And we were doing something called powerful presentation, where like for the last 2 months we've been working on like a fake workshop to where we could get up and do a presentation about this fake workshop that we were putting on, pretty much learning how to market and sell ourselves, because if nobody knows what you can do, then nobody knows what you could do. And so I get up to the front of the class and I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, I'm freaking crazy. Like, I mean, this is all nuts. Like, I don't know what's going on. And I very distinctively remember like everybody just looking at me smiling. And I was like, I have to do things. And so, like, I remember just very distinctively, I stopped paying attention to this thing and I lit myself up and I felt everybody connect. It was like, boop, 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 boop. And all of a sudden, I gave this presentation, and it was like the best presentation I've ever given in my life. I didn't know I could speak like that. And everybody's like, "Well, are you going to do the workshop?" I was like, "No, this is a fake workshop." And they're like, "Well, can you do the workshop?" And it was all about how to turn the ohm into almost like a sonic laser to decalcify your pineal gland.
Oh.
And so everybody's like, "Well, can you do the workshop?" And I was like, "I mean, I could show you guys what I'm talking about, but like I got the only A+ in the class that day." So I very distinctively recognize like there's something bigger than what I recognize is actually happening. I don't know what's happening, but it's something. And so, okay, maybe I'm not crazy. Like maybe I'm not crazy. And so I start trying to figure this out. And as I'm trying to figure this out, I'm recognizing that like this little black thing that was inside of my temple that like clicked and I had to like pull this thing out of my head, I can see them and feel them inside of other people.
Oh.
And I started to have, well, can I pull it out of them? And the very first time I did it to somebody, their head completely silent immediately. And they like my headache disappeared. Like, "Oh my God, I feel amazing. What did you do, Eric?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I really don't know." And, but I kept on trying to figure it out. And so I'm going along maybe about a year and a half. And as I'm going along figuring this out, like I'm getting called to Mount Shasta. It's like I had a magnet inside of my chest that was pulling me towards this mountain. And I didn't know how I was going to get there because, I was a broke student, and I just knew that I needed to go there. And there was a secret space program conference that I saw on Facebook that was going to be held in Mount Shasta. And a guy named Rob Potter put it on. He
Yeah.
died 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And he I'll never forget it. It was the funniest thing too, because I was like, well, I can't afford the $350 for the ticket. Maybe I can get a hold of him and see if I can volunteer for something. And so I got a hold of him, and I was like, well, do you have any volunteer spots available? I'll help you out. And he was like, no, all the volunteer spots are filled. And I said, well, I'm a massage therapist. Can I trade? And he said, oh, well, I need somebody to head up the massage team. I'm your man. And so I drove to Mount Shasta and I met Rob and I got him on the table. I worked on him. And the next thing I know, I'm there at this conference and people are starting to show up. I've got my massage table set up in the woods up on the top of this Methodist camp that we did the event at. And I hear this guy talking about these invisible implantation things that like they pretend to think in people's like internal voices and they make trauma like accessible and like make it hard for people to heal. And I was like, he's talking about he's talking about those things that I've been pulling out of people. And so I like side up into this conversation and like just like and everybody's like, hi. And I was like, I know how to take those out. I know how to get rid of those. And he looks at me and he goes, bullshit. And I was like, no, I'm dead serious. I know how to do it. And he says, bullshit. There's nobody on the planet who can do that. And I said, I'm not joking with you. I've been taking these things out for the past year and a half. I know how to do it. And he says, all right. you're on the spot, sir. I'm getting on the, and I was like, well, come on, get onto my table. And he's like, well, I'm getting onto your table, but we got the speaker meeting that we have to go to real quick. And I was like, well, just skip the speaker meeting. He's like, I'm a speaker. I can't skip it. And I was like, oh. And so we go up. There's like maybe 300, 400 people at this event. And there's, it was like maybe 10 or 12 speakers. And the guy's name was Scott Lemmerhill. And he was sitting up at the top of the table. And like the whole time he kept on, you like looking at me and pointing at me. And I was like, oh man, oh gosh. And at the end of the speaker meeting, he beelines right for me. I take him up the hill, put him on my massage table. I work on him. And I got done and he doesn't say anything. He's got like tears leaking out of his eyes and he doesn't say anything for like 5 minutes. And I'm starting to get like really uncomfortable. And I was like, so what's going on here? And he goes, we didn't know that anybody could do this. Like there's things that you miss, things that you need to learn, but like we didn't realize anybody could even do this on the planet right now. I'm going to make you famous. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he told everybody. And I probably maybe done about 12, 13 of these sessions over the year and a half that I've been doing this, besides working on myself. And that weekend I did 95 of them.
Oh my gosh.
And it turned into something I've never knew was possible. Like we had, like portals opening up right in front of us that were spilling heat out into the cold. That was so intense. Like people 100 feet down the road are like, did somebody turn on a heater? Like what is going on here? And it was just one of the most high vibrational frequencies I'd ever experienced. It was beautiful.
Mhm.
And I worked on a guy named Tim Scott. Tim Scott. He's got a psychic radio show in Seattle, and I guess he's got like a pretty serious following. And I worked on him, and he tells me, he said the false voice is gone. I was like, what do you mean the false voice? And he's like, well, anytime I do a reading, like I have the true voice and the false voice that is always, I have to tell which one's which, and it's like really easy. I'm really good at it now, but the false voice is completely gone. Like you need to get on my radio show. And so I did. And the next thing you know, I'm being like, my door is being beaten down. I've got thousands of people trying to get a hold of me to do these energy sessions. And I was doing half-hour energy sessions, 10 of them a day for 5 days a week. And I mean, I just blazed through so many people so quickly. And it was like I took a big boulder and I just dropped it into the collective. And that was actually when I started noticing everything ramping up, like the crazy, like the surveillance state, like the energetic surveillance, like the dumbing down of humanity, like actually
Mhm.
trying to poison humanity, like all
Yeah.
of these things. It really started picking up after all of this happened. And like I can't help but think that it's like, oh my goodness, like they're starting to figure this out. We have to crush this down. And that was really kind of the beginning of it. And it just really kind of evolved to the point to where I had retreats that I was doing in Mount Shasta. And I'd have like anywhere from, I think the lowest we had was 28 people, highest we had was 33 people. So, I mean, it was really like consistently, like on average, about 30 people every year who come from around the world. And I'd show them how to do this energy work. And we'd be there together for 7 days. And it was amazing. Like it was truly amazing. I saw some of the most incredible transformations and like some of the deepest, fastest friendship connections I've ever seen happen in my life. And it
Mhm.
was beautiful. And I've been teaching people how to do this. I've been doing these sessions. And then me and my ex broke up, and like I just wasn't in a place to where I felt like I could do this energy work effectively. And so I really kind of stopped doing it. I kind of stopped being like as vocal and public as I was, and I went back to my roots. And that's actually, I have a friend who lives here in Puerto Rico who I just I kept coming back. Like the first time I was here was 5 days, and then like 6 months later it was 7 days, and like 4 months later it was 10 days, and then like 3 months later it was 2 weeks. And it's like every single time I would leave, I would just be like, when's my next trip to the island? And it got to the point to what, like, why am I ever going to leave? Like, I love it here so much. Like, this is my home. And so that's really how I ended up here on this island. And I have just phenomenal clientele. Like, so when I was figuring all of this out, I was working with an applied kinesiologist, chiropractor.
Mhm.
And as I was working on people, if I would get done with them and I would give them to him, and he would always be telling me stuff like, okay, so this is the adjustment I'm trying to get. These are the muscles that aren't letting it go. This is the motion and the range of motion that I need. And so I was figuring out this whole entire modality that apparently nobody seems to have figured out yet. And I call it the fulcrum method. And I mean, I don't want to toot my horn, but it works better than just about any massage modality on the planet. And I moved here to the Ritz Reserve, and I have clientele that are, they're one percenters who, I can charge them outrageous prices, and they're more than happy to pay it now. And that's really what I settled back into, is just going back into my roots and being able to be comfortable and not have to worry about, living. And I tried to compartmentalize. I tried to keep it like, no, no, this is the massage guy over here. But I'd be working on somebody and I'd be seeing like this ball of trauma that's stuck inside of them that is causing all kinds of issues. And it's like, hey, I can show you how to fix that. And I'd, show them how to activate their chi and then breathe positive emotion into the trauma, and then gone. And all of a sudden their body lets go, and they feel amazing. And so it kind of morphed into, like, I mean, I can't compartmentalize it because it's all the facets of the same thing. Like we're dancing around this fire that, everybody's looking outside at the lightning and they don't realize that, the fire is right behind them, but they're all in their little slice of the pie. And the individual slice of the pie that each person has, like, it all culminates into the whole. And so what I've been trying to do is understand the facets of that pie. So it's all one thing. It's all healing, it's all trauma release, it's all activation of the soul inside of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it's turned into something to where like right now what we're doing is we're actually getting a group going. I just had 100 people show up to my last foundations class, and they now know how to activate their soul levels on the mind body spirit and come together in a group and then create a group container that is incredibly powerfully healing for just us individually. But then from that space, we can take it out to the world, to the collective. And so that's really kind of the major passion that I'm working on right now. Because in the beginning, when I was doing this, I was literally pulling things out of people for them. And then they'd feel great for 2-3 weeks, but then they come back. And so I had to start figuring out, how come like it's not staying permanent? Like what's going on? And it's literally because it's trauma, like a negative parasite, a negatively oriented entity. It needs density. It needs something hard inside of you, something that doesn't feel good inside of you. And that's what it feeds on. And so if you just simply stop paying attention to like, oh gosh, the demons are attacking humanity, and you go into their food, which they're trying to show you where it's at. They're honestly our best friends trying to show us where we're holding on to darkness. And if you go in and look at it from that perspective, you just simply go into where you have trauma and you clean out the trauma, you transmute the trauma, you fix the trauma, and all of a sudden they can't touch you in that area. And then they'll move on to the next one. And then you do the same thing and you move on to the next one, and they'll do the same thing until you literally get to the point to where they can't touch you. You're like a hologram that they can't grab a hold of. And what was happening is I was doing the work for people, and I recognized that me doing the work for people, it's taking away their power. It's taking away their ability to understand how this works, and more importantly, how they can do it themselves. And so that's what I did, is I started showing people how to do it. And if there's something, a little bit too heavy, a little bit, more complicated than what they're capable of seeing, because I can see in multiple dimensions on this level now, then I'll help them out with that. But it's always coming down to the same thing. It's you have to improve yourself. You have to root out your own trauma. You have to find out where you're holding on to darkness inside of you. And you can't fight it because it's already hurting. The more you try to hurt something that's already hurting, the more hurt it's going to become. And we're not here to fight, we're here to heal. And that's what I do, is I show people how to activate on these levels and heal themselves now. And it's beautiful. Like, it's absolutely beautiful. Like, I've seen so many miracles, like so many true miracles of just incredible levels of healing that
Mm-hmm.
I'm honored to be the catalyst for, like truly honored to be the catalyst for.
Mm-hmm.
And I've figured out like my concept for living. Like, my power is a foundation for others to achieve what I've achieved, and more importantly, to grow beyond me. And oh gosh, these guys, every single time I'm talking, they're always just scratching away. And so like that's the whole entire purpose that I'm here for. Like, my power is simply a foundation for others to grow from. And that's why I teach the foundations class. Ta-da.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Myself, and so many others I talk to, like yourself, the big message now is basically detoxing the
Mm-hmm.
physical, mental, emotional, spiritual bodies so that the
Yep.
higher consciousness can be embodied. And that we
Exactly.
can, as soon as we're able to embody more of that higher consciousness, then we are not subject to the delusions of the false reality
Mm-hmm.
matrix, the programming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I look at toxicity, whether it's on the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical levels, it's like
Mhm.
concrete inside of your container. And,
Mhm.
like if you've got a container this big and that much of it is filled up with concrete, you can still fill up, that last little bit, but you're completely lacking in the full capacity of what you're capable of if you're holding on to toxicity on no matter what level it is. Like the physical, the gut biome is super, super important to make sure that you have a healthy, balanced hormonal
Mhm.
existence. Like just simply on that level, it's super easy to figure that one out. But toxicity on the emotional levels, holding on to trauma, if anything, it's worse than having a bad gut biome because now all of a sudden your physical, like Masaru Emoto showed us, your water can change in the way that you speak to it, and it can have different properties in the emotions that you direct at it. And if it can do that to water, just words on pieces of paper,
Mhm.
like what happens when we're holding on to incredible trauma inside of us? And that's the thing about trauma that people don't realize. If you put your mind on it, you'll feel it. If you don't, if you distract yourself, you won't be able to pay attention to feel it, but it never changes. It's in there
Mhm.
screaming or being sad or being angry or being guilty or being shameful the entire time, whether or not you're paying attention to it. And it's literally embedded inside of your psyche, inside of your nervous system, inside of the muscle memory. And if you have something constantly feeling like trash inside of your body, it's changing your water. Like it's making your water feel like trash, feel like density, feel like nastiness. And it's constantly cycling through and poisoning you on an emotional, spiritual level if you are holding on to it. And it's so easy to
Mhm.
get rid of, so easy to fix it.
And I think from a quantum level of the self-programming, the self-talk can do so much with just our own consciousness because
Mm-hmm.
we're in charge of that consciousness in every single cell.
Absolutely.
You had mentioned that you would talk about a being that
Mm-hmm.
was working with you. Can you talk about that?
I'd like to say he was working with me, but it was more along the lines of I was just irritating him. Like I was constantly, like, hey, what do I do for blah blah, And so, all right. So the night after my oldest daughter was born, I was going to sleep, and my son, he was in the crib at the foot of my bed. He was about a year and a half old at the time, and he was breathing, and I was just, I had my eyes closed and I was wide awake, and I couldn't sleep, and I was just listening to him breathe, and then I'm at the foot of a being made out of light. Just, I mean, physically there. And my first initial reaction when I beheld this being was, oh my God, it's you. Like, how could I have ever forgotten you? Like, my friend, my mentor, my family. Like, what? And I sat there and I talked with this being for like 3 hours. I sat at his feet. He was a being made out of sunlight. Like there was no face. Like it was like if sunlight was condensed into a human form, and it was about 11, 12 feet tall. And I sat at his feet for about 3 hours, and I don't remember a single thing that we talked about. But at the end of it, he tells me, well, it's time to wake up now, Eric. And I was like, please don't make me go. Like, I want to stay here with you. Please don't make me leave. And he just kind of like chuckled at me, and he took his pointer finger and his middle finger, and he boop, right on my forehead. And I was bolt upright in bed, just and my forehead, like I had to touch it because it felt like my forehead was completely gone. Like it didn't exist anymore as physicality. And like I could feel it, but I couldn't feel it. It felt like it had exploded out in front of me, and it was made out of light, and it was spinning. And that was the actual first positive interaction that I'd ever had on a spiritual level. I'd had multiple negative interactions, just like some really terrifying stuff. And that was the first actual positive interaction on the spiritual level that like was like, oh, it's not all bad. Whew, like goodness, And so like that was actually the first time that I had hope for like this reality, for this place, for my existence inside of it. And that was who I was connecting in with. And I didn't realize it at the time as I was doing it, because he pulled me into his place. He grabbed a hold of my consciousness and pulled me into his place. And that's where I had that experience. And then after my activation, it was like I was reaching towards his space.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, I could only imagine how funny it must have been from his perspective. I mean, I was like this excited little child who,
Mm-hmm.
had just like figured out how to do something really cool. And, is like, hey, look at this. Hey, help, like just constantly. And I didn't realize I was even communicating with him, but I was getting information. And that's how I downloaded the whole chakra activation process. There's 4 steps to it, and it took me almost 6 months to get through all of them. And this is one of the reasons why I'm as powerful as I am, is simply because I've had this activation. I don't have these caps inside of my energy centers that limit the amount of energy that can activate. And it's why it's easy for me to do this work. It's not even, like it doesn't take energy for me to do it. And if anything, when I do it, I have to activate. And so it feeds me, it makes me stronger. It makes me feel really, really good. And so I'll get done with, a really long session that I hear people talking about doing these types of things and they're exhausted and they have to sleep for the next week and they just don't feel good afterwards. And I'm just like, yeah, let's do another one. So like, and that was the being that I was communicating with. And I still don't know who it is. I could try to put names to it, but like I have no idea. Like I could try to say it's Jesus, I could try to say it's Krishna. I don't know. What I do know is that is my mentor. That's who taught me. That's who runs the mystery school that I'm a part of. And the whole reason that I'm here, because we're here to be lights in the darkness. We're here to be inside of this enclosed system that has this shell around it that you're not allowed to come into it from the outside. You literally cannot come into it fully formed. You have to incarnate. That's the only way to get in here. And they can make us forget, but they
Mm-hmm.
can't make us forget,
Right.
and that's the whole purpose of being here, is because the human genome has so much potential, true godlike potential inside of it, true godlike potential.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are the systems busters, we are the reality creators. It's just that we are in a very stunted state right now, and this space, we haven't even cracked open the egg yet. Like we're still little babies in the incubator inside of the egg, and we haven't even cracked out of it yet. And that's why we're here. We put enough light into the system and you can't help it, it's going to crack open.
Okay, let me ask you a question. That being is really a very high aspect of yourself.
See, and that's actually one of the things that I have like, well, is that me from the future? Like that type of a thing. But see, I don't know, because it felt very distinctively like I know this person as a separate individuality.
Right.
And it was like one of the first things that, like, it was like, how could I have ever forgotten you? Like my friend, my family, my mentor feels like a teacher. Like that's,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. So I came into contact with a being a really, really long time ago. It was on the level of a creator, like a
Mm-hmm.
universe creator.
Mm-hmm.
And as I watched this being move through existence, it was almost like a ship moving through the water that creates a wake. And it's like the wake in and of itself, just by being made to move by this being, it spun off into individuation. And
Mm-hmm.
it was like, so if this being was the glass of cold water, it was almost like the condensation, the little beads of water that are created from it. Like it is created from it, but it is not of it. It's it's the same, it's water, like, and there's water that created the coldness that created the condensation, but it's not the water in the glass. And that's kind of what it feels like. It's like we are the same,
Mm-hmm.
but we're not the same. It's like I spun off from that higher space, and it's like from the movement, the swirls, the connection. All of a sudden, one of them was like, I am, And that's kind of what I feel like I am. It's like I'm definitely connected to this being, but I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like I really don't know, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Like,
Sure,
like I,
sure.
I really am.
Yeah. How many children do you have?
I have four.
I was just wondering if any of them take after you in this aspect.
So Damien wants to do what I'm doing now. So I've been training him,
Mhm.
and I'm actually going to be looking for volunteer clients for him here pretty soon, actually. So it's always a gratifying thing when one of your children is like, "I want to do what you do, Dad." And it's like, oh, yeah. So yeah, and I mean, all of them are wildly psychic, but Damien's the only one who actually is like I see what is happening and I understand it and I want to do something like that. And my dad's doing it, so I want to do what he's doing.
Wonderful. Isn't that great that you're able to provide the opportunity for them to learn and not feel like they're crazy like you did?
Well, it's really funny because they take it for granted, like they grew up watching me do these things and going to these retreats, and like they never even questioned it. And then now, like, it's really funny because Damien's been telling me, because he's been going through some of the literature that I was going through when I was figuring this out. And he's like, they're like really, really stuck inside of themselves. Like they don't think that like you can project your consciousness or like move chi from one point to another. They think it's all internal. And I'm like, hey, no, isn't it really kind of crazy how limited all of it is? But still, they've got really good information, like figure out what they're talking about, and
Hmm.
get rid of the rest that doesn't resonate, especially if you know that you can do it. And it's funny because he takes it for granted. He never even questions it because he got to see it. He was a child as all of this was happening. And he's at this point in time right now. He's like, oh, like humans are incredibly limited and they have no idea. And I just think it's normal. It's like, because it is normal.
Right. It's our normal human nature that's so important for everyone to tap into now.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
I was just had a question back when you were a child. Did you ever have asthma?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me
and
too.
one of my martial arts instructors showed me a stretch for it, and so pretty much you get into a hard bow stance. Where it's where you put your back foot right here, and you step forward with this front foot, and then you press into it, and you look up, and you take as big of a breath in as you can, and it forces your lungs to start to expand. And so you right foot forward stretches the right lung, left foot forward stretches the left lung. And so he showed me how to do that. And all of a sudden, like 6 months later, I didn't have asthma. And funnily enough, honestly, I think it was because of the weed smoking. But like I'm about maybe 5'6", 150. But like when I do my biometrics and stuff like that, I've got the lung capacity of like a 6'4" man. So so yeah, no, I had asthma, but it's nothing more than tension inside of your body. And if you stretch it, then it's not tense.
Well, I asked because it's typical for a child of abusive parents in one form of abuse or another when you made the comment that you knew that it wasn't the way it should be. You were
Mm-hmm.
a loving soul who wasn't getting reciprocated in the way that you knew you should be. And that really is very common for a child who's not getting the love that they need to get asthma.
Yeah. And my mom, she never really knew how to express it. She never got it herself. And she was always busy. She was never home. She was a substitute school teacher. So she'd be pulling, 14, 15, 16-hour days. And so it's like she really truly did the best that she could for us in the way that she knew how. But, she expected us to be able to go to church and then, that would fill our cup because it filled her cup, and it just wasn't enough, and that's absolutely, I truly believe that the way that we feel manifests itself in the way that we exist.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a lack of some kind, like your body's going to create a lack physically. And that's exactly what it was.
I'm so happy that you're getting out there and really spreading all the information that you have because it's so important.
Mine is
And
trauma release exercises. Like this is something everybody needs to know how to do. Long story short, you work your legs out until they're shaking, and then you lay on your back with your feet touching and the knees out to the side, and you stay there for about 10 minutes. And then you slowly lift your legs up about a half inch at a time. And you'll find points that we call trigger points inside of it that literally send you into like uncontrollable shaking, uncontrollable like trauma release. You get into a space to where um, if anybody's ever seen like big game animals being like tranquilized by people studying them and stuff like that,
Mhm.
like one of the first things that happens when they get up is as they're running off, they're like this big shaking thing that's happening. It is literally the trauma releasing out of their nervous system. And there's ways to physically activate it inside of the body. And all you got to do is look up for trauma release exercises, TREs, and you can go through it and do it yourself. I think it's one of the most important things that humans can do right now on a physical level because it opens up so much. And energy work, if you're full of trauma, if you're full of hard stuck energy, it's hard to do, and this is why a lot of people, they get fed up with it because they're trying to do the things and they're hearing all these experiences that people are having and they're like, I don't feel none of it, and like it is doing its job. The reason you're frustrated is because frustration's your blockage, and it's like you got to get in and start cleaning that out. But trauma release exercises are one of the easiest ways to really kind of start this journey. Kundalini yoga is actually a very powerful modality that it's designed to specifically pump the lymphatic system and get your lymphatic system open and moving. If your lymphatic system is open and moving, the meridians are open and moving. So that's also those two right there. Those are actually like physical techniques that I think are super important. The energetic techniques. So the way that I teach people how to do this is it's not visualization. A lot of the energy work that we have in the mainstream right now is like you visualize things, and that's just your brain. We have to activate the body, and so what I do is I show people how to activate the chi, and that's simply putting your thought awareness into sensation awareness, and that starts to create enough bioelectric flow to where the iron in the body and your water actually catches, and that's where you get the tingling from. Once you have the tingling, then you put positive emotion into it. Once you have the positive emotion and the tingling into it, you light it up like the sun. And then you can direct it anywhere inside of your body. And it's a physical field of not just positive energy, but you're literally moving a wave of blood. And so if you've got anything blocked on the pulmonary or the lymphatic levels, you can actively go in and start to physically clean it out with these techniques right here. Super important. And what happens is the more that you do this, the more you're reinforcing your meridian systems. So think about it like most people's meridians are like this clogged little stream in the woods that's got, like weeds and sticks and mud and rocks and all kinds of stuff blocked up inside of it. The more that you do this work, the more it turns almost into like a Roman aqueduct where it's like everything's super hyper reinforced and there's perfect flow through there. The more you do that, the more you're actually feeding the energy centers of the body. Once the energy centers of the body have enough energy, they aren't lacking anymore. And when they're in lack, they're constantly pulling from you. They're trying to drain you because they need the life force. Once you have powerful enough life force inside of the body, the meridian systems are almost like pools of water that then they get full and then they start to spill out. And so once they start to spill out, this is where you can start creating a very powerful auric field. And the auric field is what's needed for you to do energy work to, like, I've got clients around the world and I can reach out and touch somebody right next to me on my table just as easily as I can reach out and touch somebody in Australia on my table.
Right.
And that is how we get to the point to where you're not drawing from yourself when you're doing this work, because a lot of the times people do tap into these levels subconsciously. They don't know that they're doing it, but they're, visualizing so powerful that they create sensations. And so then they do this work and it's literally like they're emptying out their energy. And then that's why they get tired. And this is why when you have this flow inside of your body, this energy work is effortless because it's the excess. You've already got everything full to the point to where it's like, if you've got a cup that's an ever flowing cup, it's always pouring out. Even if you tip it over, it's just going to turn into a waterfall. It's constantly going to keep giving. And that's what we're looking for, is the more that you do this, the more you accrete this on bigger and bigger every single day. Eventually you hit a point to where you break through. And the breakthroughs are absolutely incredible. You'll get to a space to where it's like, I didn't know humans could feel this good. Like, I feel literally godlike right now. It can't get better than this. But then that becomes your new normal and you keep going until you break through again. And I've gone through like 50, 60 breakthroughs now. And each time it's like, there's no way it can feel better than this. But then the bottom drops out and it does. So, it's all about just gaining. It's about accreting the energy and building up your power here in this space, which, by the way, is one of the main reasons why we incarnate. Because in a physical body, we have the capacity to grow our souls because there's discomfort here, and discomfort is what's needed to become strong. And that's why, people who run from the discomfort, they'll never be able to figure it out. They'll never be able to fix it because you have to face it. You have to literally breathe your gentleness into the space that's trying to do everything but not be gentle. You have to control your space. And as you do that, this is what gives you the capacity to make your soul evolve. And that's the whole reason that we're even here. What's the meaning of life? To evolve your soul. And like, this is one of the easiest ways to do it.
Yeah.
Other ways are, not so easy. Like, you got to go through hard things, and like that, until you figure out the lesson, the cycle will continue. So let's just, clean the stuff out so that we don't have to continue the cycle.
And I heard you talk about, which I really agree, I've done quite a lot of it myself, are the past life regressions, learning about your past lives. And those past lives can definitely bring in physical and emotional and mental traumas that need to be dealt with in this lifetime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've got a very rich tapestry of lives that I've lived, all the way from the darkest of the dark to the lightest of the light. And
Mhm.
the most impactful ones were the ones where I was not a good person. And that is where most of my lessons have come through from, because I was the monster in the darkness, and like, I'll just tell you right now, one of the biggest lifetimes that has impacted me, I was if a T-Rex could evolve into a humanoid form, that's one of the bodies that I was in. And I created a lot of the systems that I'm undoing now,
Oh,
and yeah, exactly. And it's been a whole entire redemption arc. It's been the hero's journey. It's been, like, I recognized how wrong all of it was and what is important to understand it. And so I've been having to come at it from the other end, which is why I've got so many rough lives in my history, because I carried some very dark energies into these spaces that then I incarnated into. One of the only ways to evolve your soul, there we are again, is to confront your own darkness, to recognize that you do have the capacity for great darkness, that you have the capacity for great violence to hurt people,
mhm.
and that's something that I have to understand. And until we can be able to confront those very dense energies on a physical, a mental, and a spiritual level with love, with gentleness, we're never going to get rid of it. And this is one of the biggest problems that I see with the human race right now, is that there's lots and lots of dark lifetimes that people are carrying around that they are then manifesting into this lifetime. And
Mhm.
it's soul evolution. Like, we've got to experience it all. Like, we have to experience it all.
Right. When you were talking about that, I was just seeing you, the amount of powerful energy that you carry as a soul. You put it into the dark and now you're putting it into the light.
Well, and like I was talking about earlier, where I felt like I was sinking into that pit, like,
Mhm.
it shocked me out of, because I was just like focusing on my pity party there. And then all of a sudden I felt these things up above me on the top of this pit who were just gleefully so excited I was in this pity party. And like, I recognized what I had been building. Oh, and it was like, look what you made, Eric. Like, I mean, objectively, step back from it. Let's not feel how nasty it is. It's magnificent. Like, look what you created. What would happen if you focused on light, stupid? And that was the, oh, and that's what really turned everything around. And it was December 21st, 2012, that downward spiral started. And then I got into massage school March 2013. So, I mean, it was fast. It was very, very fast. It's like, why don't you focus on light? Why don't I? And then all of a sudden, here I am. It's magnificent, but I like it now.
And you're just beaming with energy. That energy that you exude is so has a positive effect on people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's really funny to recognize it, to see it happening, because there's, so many people are stuck inside of themselves. They're just thoughts behind their eyes. They don't have any knowledge or any understanding of the grandness of the scope of who they actually are.
Mhm.
And I don't exist behind my eyes. Like, I'm this big giant bubble that it's like centered around my heart space. And just by me being in the vicinity of some people, like, they can feel it infecting themselves. Like, it's almost like they can't help it. They're like, yeah, what's going on? And it's like, that's the space that I speak to inside of people. Like, I try not to talk to this. I try to talk to this. And by doing that, you can't help it help somebody wake up. And that's one of the most powerful reasons that I'm here. I love seeing somebody drop from here to here and all of a
Mhm.
sudden be aware from that level. And it's one of the things that, like, it's my calling. It's why I'm here.
Wonderful. Now, I'm sure you've had this experience too, that your positive energy is an irritant to some people.
Yep. Well, and I in the beginning when all of this was happening, um, it was the craziest thing to watch. Like, they couldn't get to me. Like, they could not get to me. So they got to my family. And it
Ooh.
was the wildest thing to watch. It was like all of a sudden my family was on the warpath against me. And then, like, I moved out, and, like, like 2, 3 years later, like, they had no idea why they were so upset with me. And and it's like, I can't hold it against them. Like, it's hard for these levels to even be understood, much less try to work on them. Especially when they had a very distinctive view of who I was, and I was not being that person. And it wasn't actually until my mom, she came to watch the youngest at an event that I was working at, and she saw me working on these people. And it was the funniest thing, because at the end of it, she was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I tried to tell you, mom. Like I'm literally, like, helping people's souls activate." And she's like, "How?" And I was like, "Well, do you want to learn? Do you want me to work on you?" And she's like, "Yeah." And that was actually the first time that like, they started, maybe he's not crazy. Maybe he's, not all insane and blah blah. And and, like, because they could see the effects of it. And but I was irritating the crap out of them. They
Mhm.
hated having me around. And
Mhm.
it was so funny to watch, because, I mean, all I'm doing is literally just becoming the best version of myself, and they hated it. So, like, but I just had my mom out not too long ago. She had a good time here. So
Even though they perceive it as irritating and they don't know why, it's really activating, is what it's doing,
yep.
activating parts of themselves that they need to address.
Yep.
But
Well, my mom's finally in therapy after a whole lifetime of trauma, like, about, ooh, 5 years ago, when I started working on the genetic line, she just up and got a hold of me and it's like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to go to therapy and try to fix all this." And she started doing
wonderful.
EMDR therapy and, like, all kinds of stuff. And I never thought I'd see the day. Like, I never thought I'd see the
Mhm.
day. My mom,
Wonderful.
she deserves the world for putting up with me as a child. She really does. Like,
A spitfire. We know how those redheads can be.
oh man, I was such a bad kid. I was such a bad kid. Like,
Did you
oh, my
have a
poor
bad
mom.
did you have a bad temper?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
My son's redhead, and he had a bad temper too. And he actually worked on it, self-initiated, and on his own temper when he was in elementary school.
Mm.
It
I
was
wish I would have
amazing.
figured it out then.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't until I was like 26, 27. Like, I didn't even get a handle on it until, like, like early 30s. What's up,
Oh,
buddy?
there's the baby.
Yeah, he likes coming and saying hi. Come say hi, Buster. Say hello.
Oh,
Look at
yeah.
his handsome little bow tie.
Oh, gorgeous. Do you have
Yeah.
to keep him inside there?
Well, I've kind of got, like, a little compound here. Like, I drive my car into the garage and then I close it, and there's a front yard that, like, it's got a big door that opens up that I always just keep locked anyway. And then the backyard, it's completely fenced in, so it's like they go wherever they want now.
Oh, good, good. I have really, really enjoyed our conversation. I think you're just a blessing on this planet. I'm so glad
Thank
you're
you.
here right now. doing what you're doing, and I can see it's only going to go up and out from here. Your future is bright.
I definitely think so. Like I'm very excited for what we've got planned here for not just for myself and what that's going to be doing for me, but humanity. You know, like I'm
Mhm,
very firmly staunched in being a service to others being, but I also
mhm.
recognize that I am another. So like the rising tide lifts all ships, and that's what I'm trying to do here.
Right, right. Thank you so much for your time and
You're welcome.
your stories and being so open and helping everyone, like talking about
Mm.
the techniques that we can work on. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Sending much love to you in that on that beautiful island.